Can you please state your name for the court?
Haley Floyd.
Ms. Floyd, what do you do for a living?
I'm an accountant.
How long have you been an accountant?
At heart, since I've been a little kid, but according to my diploma, since 2009.
Where did you go to school?
Well, I got my bachelor's in accounting and finance from Wagner College back in '07, and then I got my master's in accounting from Midland State University in 2009.
Why did you decide to go into accounting?
Well, I loved it. Growing up as a kid, my parents owned a pizza store, and every day after school, I would go and help them out by logging inventory, counting cash, and just maintaining their financial records. And ever since then, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
After you got out of school, where did you work?
I work at Proctor World. It's a small amusement park in Midland City, Midlands.
When did you start there?
Back in 2010.
What exactly do you do for Proctor World?
Well, I track the general cash flow. So I compare estimate versus actual figures, and then I compile all of that data into monthly financial statements, specifically a profit and loss sheet.
Can you tell us how exactly Proctor World makes money?
Sure. Amongst other things, we have an admissions wristband system. We offer 2 wristbands at the park, a general admission pass, which costs $20, and a world tour pass, which offers a few extra perks for $35.
When you got to Proctor World in 2010, was there an accounting system in place?
Oh, God, no, it was horrible. Mr. Longstreet, the owner of Proctor World, used a guesstimate system to track his accounts receivables. It was awful. There was no documentation of how many revenues we were generating and no documentation of what expenses we were paying out. It was a mess.
Did you do anything to fix the problem?
I had to. I implemented a new system in which I purchased numbered wristbands to keep track of the number of customers coming into the park every day.
How exactly did that numbered wristband system work?
Well, we started each row of wristbands at a number every day. Let's say starting at 1001. As customers came in, I would hand out sequentially numbered wristbands, 1002, 1003, etc. So if at the end of the day we ended up at 1050, we knew that we had 50 customers come in that day.
How did that system help your accounting?
Well, it helped us keep track of exactly how many World Tour customers and exactly how many general admission customers we were seeing every day. It worked so great that it even helped us detect a problem in 2012.
Where did you detect that problem?
Well, one night I was sitting in my office looking through the profit and loss sheets, and I noticed that the trends in 2012 weren't matching up to the trends in 2010 and 2011.
Let the record reflect that I'm showing opposing counsel with remarks to prosecution 1. Permission to approach the witness?
You may.
Let the record reflect that I'm handing the witness the same. Ms. Floyd, do you recognize what I just handed you?
I do. It's the profit and loss sheets from 2010, 2011, and 2012.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of the profit and loss sheet that you worked with at Proctor World?
It is.
Now, whose responsibility is it to keep this document updated?
As the park's accountant, it's my responsibility.
How often do you update it?
Every single day.
Your Honor, at this time, the state moves prosecution 1 into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, it will be entered into evidence.
May we publish a copy to the jury?
You may.
Ms. Floyd, you noticed that you saw a problem with the park's accounting from the profit and loss sheet. What did you notice?
Well, if you look at the total column in 2010 under admissions, you'll notice that general admission sales compared to 2010 and 11 were skyrocketing, but that World Tour sales were significantly declining.
Why was that a problem?
Well, in the past, in 2010 and 11, if general admission sales were increasing, World Tour sales were also increasing. So the fact that in 2012 we were seeing one set of sales increasing and one set decreasing just didn't add up.
Did you notice anything else?
I did. As I mentioned, World Tour sales were decreasing, but I noticed that there were more customers in the park wearing World Tour wristbands.
Your Honor, permission to retrieve prosecution 1 from the witness and tender to the bench?
Granted. Thank you, counsel.
Ms. Floyd, you mentioned that you saw more customers in the park during 2012 wearing World Tour wristbands. How did you verify that?
Well, I had to make sure the numbers were correct. So for the first week of August, I, along with the ride operators, tallied how many World Tour customers we were seeing in line.
And why did you use this tally method?
Well, this tally method provided me with an ample set of data which allowed me to accurately estimate the number of customers we were seeing.
And what did you do with that data?
Well, I compiled it into a demonstrative and I prepared it and brought it to court today to share what I saw.
Your Honor, may the witness step down to make use of the demonstrative?
Granted. Counsel, if you'd like to move, please feel free to move freely.
Ms. Floyd, what are we looking at here?
This graph shows the number of World Tour customers we saw in line versus the World Tour sales in August of 2012.
Counsel, just hold on 1 second. So, do you have any objections to this demonstrative being shown?
Not at this point, Your Honor.
Okay. Continue.
And what is this top bar? What does the top bar represent?
Well, as I mentioned, I, along with my ride operators, tallied how many World Tour customers we saw wearing a World Tour wristband. And based on those tallies, I found that 42% of the park's customers were wearing a World Tour wristband.
What does this bottom bar represent?
Well, this bar comes directly from our profit and loss sheet, or our P&L. This 27% shows that 27% of our sales were World Tour sales.
So what is this red area here?
Well, that's the discrepancy that I found. If 42% of customers were wearing a World Tour wristband, we should have seen 42% of sales. But instead we saw 27% of sales. This 15% here is unaccounted for.
Roughly how many wristbands was that 15%?
Well, according to the profit and loss sheet, in August alone, over 4,000 wristbands.
Thank you, Ms. Floyd. You can retake the stand. After you noticed this discrepancy, what did you do?
Well, at this point, I knew that there wasn't a flaw in my accounting system. And then I was suspicious that the only other place that handled wristbands, the ticket booth,
Who worked the ticket booth in 2012?
Cameron Poole.
And so what did you do?
Well, since Cameron Poole was the only other person that had access to these wristbands, I checked Cameron Poole's locker.
What, did you find anything there?
I found wristbands in there.
Would you recognize those wristbands if you saw them in court today?
I would.
Let the record reflect that I'm showing opposing counsel was the marked as prosecution 2. Permission to approach the witness?
You may.
Let the record reflect that I'm handing the witness the same. Ms. Floyd, what is this document?
This is a document of the wristbands I saw at Rockter World in the summer of 2012.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction of those wristbands?
It is.
This time the state moves prosecution 2 into evidence.
Any objections?
Without objection, Your Honor.
It will be moved in and entered as prosecution's exhibit 2.
Ms. Floyd, what are wristbands 2A and 2B?
2A and 2B are the wristbands that I ordered for the park. The top one is our general admission wristband, and 2B is our World Tour wristband. As you can see, both are brightly colored and have a serial number on the side.
What is wristband 2C?
Well, as I mentioned, I found wristbands in Cameron Poole's locker, and those wristbands looked a lot like this one. But as you can see, they look exactly like the World Tour Pass, but they're a little faded in color, and they don't have that serial number on the side.
Permission to retrieve evidence and tender to the bench?
You may. Would you like it published to the jury?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Floyd, what did you do after you found this set of wristbands in Cameron's locker?
Well, I immediately went to go talk to J.C. Longstreet, the park's owner and CEO, and together J.C. and I decided that it would be best if I worked at the ticket booth, and so J.C. told Cameron that Cameron was no longer needed at the park.
And when did you take over the ticket booth?
On August 30th.
Did that end up solving the discrepancy problem?
It did. When Cameron was working at the ticket booth, we noticed that 42% of customers were wearing a World Tour wristband, but sales didn't match that. When I worked the ticket booth, I noticed that sales were equaling to 42%. Everything was evening out.
And you mentioned that you were working the ticket booth on August 30th. What happened at 8 p.m.?
Well, I was checking my sales figures from the day for one last time, when all of a sudden Cameron Poole approached me. Before I knew what had happened, Cameron had a knife out, an inch away from my face.
Did Cameron say anything to you?
He told me to give him all of the money, or else he'd carve up my face.
What did you do?
At that point, I didn't know what to do. I started handing him all the money we had made that day and he started putting it in his bag. It was thousands of dollars.
Ms. Floyd, were you able to see the knife that Cameron was holding?
I can never forget it. It had a bright blue handle. You know, I had actually seen a very similar knife before
Where had you seen it?
with Whit Bowman. I saw her holding a knife that looked exactly like that one with the same blue handle just a week before.
No further questions, Your Honor. Would opposing counsel like to